Hello humans and welcome to episode 5 of Chef Mike Does Stuff. Due to ingredient availability today, we are going to make a full brisket. Now with some of my other videos, you may understand that I'm trying to keep this extra easy and simple. So this is a full brisket, the flat and the point. When it's all done, I'll show you how the parts kind of connect. But this has not been trimmed at all. I used one store-bought rub. I'm actually just using Montreal steak. Covered this bad boy in it. I'm gonna let it sit for an hour, and then I'm going to bring it out to the smoker that's already on. We're gonna be cooking this at about 250, 265 degrees. I got the rack. If you watched the smoked pork butt video, we're gonna do the same thing where it's gonna be hovering over a pan of water, the pan that it happens to be in, and we're gonna get it rocking and rolling. It should take a whole bunch of hours. When I do this for competition, I very much aggressively trim this. There's a big layer of fat between what they call the flat, which is the lean part of the brisket, and the point, which is the fattier part that usually turn into burnt ends. So I'll cut off a bunch of fat in the middle of there, which makes the hunk of meat a little more even. On the other side where the fat layer is, I usually trim some of that, but we're not gonna do that. I'm just smothering this bad boy in seasoning, and we're gonna cook it till it's done and see what happens. So I will meet you at the smoker for hour 0, just so you can take a look at what it looks like on the smoker. Stay tuned. All right, let's take a look at hour 0, just so you can see how it looks in the smoker. Here we go, water pan, fat side up, bunch of seasoning. As you can see, that's a big old brisket. It's about 14 pounds, so it is gonna take a while. If I had, or if I wasn't self-quarantining, I would be able to go out and get a bigger rack, but I don't have one. And so we're gonna make do with whatever we got. I had to fold the ends in a little bit to hold, to get it on the rack there. So yeah, brisket. It's a little sexy close-up of the field of seasoning. And we're gonna let this go for quite a while. I'm gonna get a squirt bottle going again, but this time it's gonna be like kind of a beef broth. Really not a lot of sugars on this bad boy. And then later, if I'm gonna try not to wrap it at all, but a lot of times, brisket might get a little dark. We might do what's known as the Texas crunch, but we'll see how it goes. So I'll be back in maybe 4 hours to take a look at it. All right, we are 4 hours in. We're gonna take a look. I did put a probe in, and the thickest part, we're at 136 degrees, so that's about right. It might be cooking a little fast, but of course there's a stall going on. Let's take a look here. Yep. So it's starting to get a little dark on one side. That's also where you can see the pan is not covering the heat, so that side might get a little dark. That's okay. And I'm just spraying this bad boy. This is basically beef broth, soy sauce, and Worcestershire sauce. Just giving it a little something in there. Rock and roll. All right, we are about 9 hours in. I did rotate it once and rotated it back. We are gonna take a look at how it's doing. We're at about 185 on the inside, so I have not wrapped it. There didn't seem to be much of a stall. It's getting dark and windy out, so it might not be as nice of a pretty picture, but I'm gonna just spritz it a little bit. I had the probe in the thicker part, and that read pretty high, so I put it over in the thinner part, and it read the same. I'm gonna keep it over there. I'm going a little more by feel, so even if we get to past 200, if it's still a little tough, I might keep it going. So yeah, progress. Roger. We are at 10.5 hours. We're at 203 degrees. I poked it. I think it is done. Yes, indeed. So I didn't didn't wrap it at all. I've been very good at spraying it, keeping it moist. As you know, I cooked it over a water pan, so it's been cooking in a moist environment for quite a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna close this lid. I'm gonna turn off my smoker, and the rest time is going to happen in here. One of the things I like about this is that as the smoker slowly cools down, it is cold outside, so it's going to cool down a little faster than normal. But as the smoker cools down, so will the meat. Some people take it, transfer it, put it in a cooler, put it in a Cambro insulated food carrier. But you're not going to do that. You're going to turn your smoker off, and you're just going to let it sit for at least 45 minutes to an hour. And then we'll bring it inside and we'll check out how this beast looks on the inside. Laters. All right, so our brisket has rested for an hour. I put it in the smoker this morning at 7. It cooked only 10.5 hours. It got to about 205 degrees. Then once it hit temperature, I just turned the smoker off and I let it sit in there for about an hour. I did not wrap in butcher paper and foil. You're gonna notice that this is definitely a lot more bark, a lot more crust on it than a wrapped version. By all means, if you prefer foil or butcher paper, do that. I wanted to give a try of just unwrapped the entire time, as well as this is uninjected, but I did put a whole bunch of seasoning on it. This is upside down. So this fatter end over here, and as you can see as I jiggle, there's kind of a line right here. That is the point. That's what you'd remove and do burnt ends with. And underneath, you could see how there's a line separate here, is the flat. That's the leaner brisket, and that's what you do kind of, slice against the grain. What I'm gonna do is cut right down the middle because you wanna see juicy food porn. So I'm gonna give you that juicy food porn, hopefully. So let's see how this looks on the inside. You hear the crust. Once it gets through, it kind of is just falling apart right there in the middle. It's hot. Here we go, let's see. I'll give it a little squeeze, which you actually should never do because here, let me move the cutting board. Let me give you a little more sample of what's going on here. Okay, so this is what we got. Juicy, hot, moist. I'm gonna give it a little squeeze. You see that? Like I said, there's two different parts. So this part down here is actually the leaner part. What I would normally do, and what I'm gonna do right now, is separate that out. You basically could get to a point where you're just gonna pull it apart. It is super hot right now, so be very careful. You can see how there's this layer in between. There's gonna be some excess fat in there, so you can trim it, remove it, do whatever you want with it. One of the tests that they do for brisket, so usually they cut it about pencil thick. So as thick of a pencil. Hold it. Flops down like that. And then when you pull it, it should just come apart just like that. Just a light little tug. But to me, the better part is this over here. I'm gonna take just a little bit of the fat off, not a whole lot. Oh man, that's looking good. I'll flip it over and let's cut about right here. So like I said, this is the burnt end. This is more like short rib, a lot more kind of marbling throughout the meat. I'll give it a little squeeze for you. Oh man, that's looking pretty good. Now usually this is what you make burnt ends with. So you'd cube it up, add a little sauce to it, maybe even a little water. So that way you could throw it back in the smoker or oven, get it nice and tacky, and then that would be your burnt ends. I'm just gonna, you see how that just kind of falls apart right there?
And guess what? That's it. All I did was buy a big hunk of meat. I bought a store-bought seasoning. I cooked it in a smoker until it was done. I turned the smoker off and let it rest. That's like 5 things. You can do it. Make sure that you subscribe to Chef Mike Does Stuff to see the cool, awesome next thing that I'm going to do. Who knows what it's going to be? We'll see ingredient availability, but let me get you one last look at what we got going on here. Boom. Brisket. Easy. You can do it. Subscribe, like, share, tweet, send me pictures, do it yourself. Rock and roll.